Ooh, you didn't tell me you were a brainiac.
Welcome into Leather Brains. Your host here, Slap Diggity Dog, for episode 211, AFC NFC Championship Recap. I am joined today by Scotty Del Rey and Alan Casanova Castro. Alan, it's been a while.
Yo.
How you been? You're still alive. A lot of the Brainiacs were concerned about your health.
Yeah, it was touch and go there for a little bit, but I'm still alive. I made it. Made it past everything. Now my heart's broken. We got one NFL game left.
Sad, measly little Super Bowl.
We got one game left.
But we're some of the very few people who are fans of one of the teams that are in this very final game.
That's true.
Ooh,
Scotty,
we're still invested.
Is that the sweater from last week's episode?
No, this is my good high-quality sweater.
Fitting sweater.
I only wear the other one during playoff games because it looks ridiculous on me.
You should wear it in the event that the Chiefs win the Super Bowl on the show next week.
Well, I mean, on the podcast, it's not going to look that ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Well, you should just hold it up and do that on the show. That way we can see your midriff.
Yeah.
Maybe
I'm going to have to do some crunches.
Scotty knows mine. I don't wear team stuff.
On game
all day. I don't wear anything.
You just wear like a champion sweater, like a
I just wear like this or just whatever. Just generic clothing. I don't know.
Feel it goes against.
A couple reasons. Lately, the Chiefs, when I've gone to their games, obviously I'm wearing Chiefs stuff, and they've lost the last two times I've been to their games, and so I've steered away. And then it just kind of, if I'm not there, I don't want to wear it. And then feel like when you are there, you have to wear the team gear, but whenever I'm there, they lose. So it's just like this total mental pretzel I do. And
do you think it was because you were there?
I think it was.
Do you take ownership in some of the losses?
I do, 100%. Yeah. I think I shouldn't be there. And I feel guilty when I walk in, and I'm like, the last game I was the Monday night game against Philadelphia last year, where they lost to Philadelphia. And I'm like, I feel guilty. Like I shouldn't be here watching this. And I had an opportunity to go to the AFC title game, and I was like,
you turned it down?
I can't go.
Honestly, all Chiefs fans should be thanking you if that's the case, because that's
go.
The most selfless act I've heard of in a while.
Not only did I not go to the game, I spent $150 on the Chiefs to win the game because I hedged my emotions and put $150 on the Buffalo money line.
Oh, Lord, you did it again this year.
I did it, baby. We're back in business. I had to explain to my wife what I was doing, and she's like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard, but go for it.
I also think it's ridiculous, but it keeps working, so I'm not going to complain.
You did it last year. Did you do it the year before as well?
I didn't. No, I did it the year before, and last year I was
when it was Chiefs Eagles, because you and I had the Eagles in the Super Bowl,
and I'm going to do it again. But last year I didn't do it because I was like, Chiefs, like where they were last year. I was like, they're going to lose anyways. Like I'm not going to do this again. Like whatever. Yeah. Like I'm not going to get. And then they just kept winning, and then I just didn't do it last year. So this year I'm back on the train. So I wonder if it worked. So I got it.
Here's the hoping.
As long as I got my hoodie, it's a waste of money.
That's true. Scotty does have the lucky hoodie.
Undefeated.
All right. Angels in the outfield, gentlemen. They have a fetish for tight ends. The carousel coaching continues, and the Chiefs will inevitably three-peat. That's what we're covering here today. Before we do that, we have to give a shout-out to our sponsor, Erica's Healthy Pet. Ladies and gentlemen, Erica's Healthy Pet is the place to be for your pet's needs, whether it be cheesy bites, turkey jerky, beef liver chews, puppy balm, whatever the case. Go check out ericashealthypet.com and use code LB20. You're going to get 20% off your order. Erica's Healthy Pet is keeping the lights on here at Leather Brains, and the best way to support us is to go check out ericashealthypet.com to find the treats and or topical solutions that your loved animal might need. And once again, if you use code LB20, you're going to get 20% off. It is that simple. Before we talk about the Chiefs, because I know this is a lot of conversation, but I don't want to get I don't want to get you guys too excited too quick. We gave a little meme of the salt guy there. We gave a little bit of taste of what's to come for the Chiefs Bills conversation, but I want to start by talking about the NFC title game against the Commanders versus the Eagles. Gentlemen, the Eagles did not win this game. They decimated the Commanders in this game, 55-23. I'll open the floor. Where do we want to start out with this game?
We just do a quick recap. Just some quick thoughts. I know we'll dive into the game. I think gut reaction from my end was I thought Jayden Daniels was the reason they had a shot in this game, which I thought was interesting from a rookie QB. He looks like the real deal. And, listening to some of the radio shows talking about Kingsbury and how they were like integrating Jayden Daniels into the system, they borrowed a lot of LSU's playbook to like layer into the play calls they make for the Commanders. And I think that's the one thing I'm going to take away from this. Obviously, the Eagles are the Eagles. They are just loaded at every position, at every level. But the fact that Jayden Daniels was the reason they were in this game, not the reason they lost this game, was certainly not something I was thinking of taking away from it. Aside from the Saquon going nuts again.
I want to. One thing that I loved about this game, and I'm kind of stealing this from you, Alan, so I do apologize. The 2-yard line when they were tush pushing it in the end zone, and the Commanders just kept jumping off sides and jumping over the line to try and stop the tush push. It was amazing. And honestly, I don't know why teams haven't been doing it all year, because it's like, what do you have to lose at that point? And I think that's kind of the mentality where the Commanders are at. And it turns out they do have something to lose. If they continue to do it, the refs were just going to give the Eagles a free touchdown, because they're like, hey, you jump off sides again, and we can't award a touchdown, because at some point, if you just keep jumping off sides at the half-yard line, what else are you supposed to do?
That was the first time I think many people had ever heard that rule actually being like addressed. And it's not something that happens often, when the ref had to take like 2 minutes of game time to explain why this was a rule, which is why in that moment I get why the rest of the world's like, how the fuck do you watch this shit? Because it's like we don't even know all the rules. I didn't know how you felt, Scotty.
Yeah, I mean, it was hilarious. It was. I was doing some research on it because, like everybody else, I didn't know this was a thing, and it turns out it was used one other time in college in like 1954 or something like that. And it's because there was a play where a player had the ball running free down the sideline, obviously going to be a touchdown, and then an opposing player came off the sideline and tackled him at like the 5-yard line. And then the refs were like, all right, you can't do that. That's a touchdown. And they just gave the other team points. And that's the kind of thing, like the kind of situation why this rule exists. It's very funny. And as a Chiefs fan, we got the refs in our back pocket. I'm feeling like, all right, now that we know this is a thing, might be able to get some extra points in this bitch.
Oh, that was the instant Twitter reaction was, Mahomes realizes that he can just be awarded a touchdown now? Like, how do we integrate this?
Andy Reid's.
We should. I found actually the link to that game, Scotty, on YouTube. It was Alabama versus Rice. An Alabama player came off the bench and tackled the Rice running back as he's running down the sideline. It's actually hilarious. We should quote whatever that one is and then tag this video in it, because it's freaking hilarious. But yeah, that's unreal that happened. It's like, guys, stop doing that. But there was no like clear boundaries. It was like, if we see this keep happening, I'm
like, how many more would you have let them jump off sides before you? Let them keep doing it.
It was almost like the empty threat. If you've ever been on a car ride and pissed your dad off, he's like, I'm going to turn this car around. I'm like, when? Like, when?
Yeah,
do I get one? Can I try it one more time? Because I felt like he was close to like timing it up. And the hilarious thing was the Eagles' reaction. Like, oh, we got you. We moved 2 more inches closer to the goal line. Like, you guys are fucked. It's like, no, we're not. Like,
we were already fucked when you went into freaking the tush push formation. Yeah. I want to talk about Saquon. I'm of the belief that I don't think the Eagles would be in the Super Bowl without Saquon Barkley this year. I really do believe that. And if you don't think that, I don't know if you've been watching Saquon this year, because I know the Giants certainly have, because they've seen what a star player can do with a competent offensive line, and welcome to the Super Bowl Eagles. But is Saquon Barkley, should he be the MVP this year? And do you think that the Eagles will be here in the event that Saquon wasn't on the team?
I guess to the first question, there's certainly an argument for it. I think Josh Allen's going to win it, and I support Josh Allen winning the MVP. Saquon, unfortunately, is probably third on the list behind Lamar Jackson. But there's just no doubt that this team would be absolutely fucked without Saquon Barkley. And that sounds like an insult, but it's really a testament to this front office, where they said, hey, nobody's paying running backs right now. Running backs are kind of going by the wayside. We're pretty freaking close to being a Super Bowl team. already made a Super Bowl recently. What do we need? Let's go get this star running back behind our already great offensive line, and we'll pay him whatever he wants to be paid, which, by the way, isn't very much money, compared to other players. Gabe Davis, as the memes keep saying, Gabe Davis makes more than Saquon Barkley. So it's like, yeah, it's a no-brainer when you see the result like this, but no other teams were doing it. I mean, Saquon Barkley, there was a story that came out that said he actually turned down 2 higher offers to go play for the Eagles, which, if that's true, I mean, that makes perfect sense because you see this offensive line and Saquon's probably just licking his lips. But ultimately, credit to the Eagles organization for saying, hey, we're going to do something a little bit out of the mainstream. We're going to go pay some money for a running back. Nobody else is doing it, and that is definitely the difference maker because this guy looks unstoppable.
I agree. You look at how the Eagles ended the season last year, where they go to Tampa Bay, they fold, everything's unraveling. They have this incredible losing skid to end the season. You're like, where do they go from here? What do they do? And they lose Kelce, and everybody's questioning what this team's going to look like this year. And then, lo and behold, you pull out old reliable in football is your running game. And I think the NFL's largely forgot, obviously, because they're not paying running backs. But, man, it looks insane when you have a home run hitting running game. Like, it's insane to watch him just rip off a 60-yard run. It looks almost like primitive because you're like, why are we not throwing it 60 yards? Why are we running it 60 yards? But I think especially with today's NFL, I mean, again, testament to the Eagles front office, testament to knowing what they do well at, which is running the ball. They have a great offensive line. And you look at how NFL teams are built now. Like, NFL defenses are built to stop the pass. Everybody's doing the shell coverage. Everybody's doing this cover 2 where they keep everything in front. And, when you get a running back like Saquon busting through that first line, getting that second and third level, it's like impossible to tackle him. So to answer your question, Slaps, 100%, I think he should be the MVP if you're just like impact to team immediately where they are. Like, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are on their way to Cancun, and Saquon's in the Super Bowl, and he's going nuts these last 2 games, rushing for over 300 yards, he has 5 touchdowns rushing. Like, that is, he's single-handedly, and not that other players on the Eagles couldn't have done it, because I think,
but they're not.
Yeah, they're not. They don't have to. I think that's a scary thing, and we're not even doing the Super Bowl preview yet. But if you're looking at this Eagles team, they haven't even had to like really use AJ Brown or Devonta Smith. That's scary. Like, they don't even have to use it. They're like, oh, they're there, but like, I don't have to call that play right now because Saquon is just absolutely killing it. So it's unreal run. I think he's just totally changed the complexion of that team. Yes, they still do the tush push, but I think everybody's just super terrified of Hurts turning around and handing the ball off.
Yeah. Well, I think this is kind of a good segue. I want to talk about Nick Sirianni here for a little bit, because do you guys think that, perhaps Saquon is a Band-Aid for his career? And I bring this up even after winning this game. There is a lot of people over on X who are saying that Sirianni's a fraud, and the only reason that the Eagles are good is because of their front office. So I'm going to read Nick Sirianni's record as a head coach. So his year 1 with the Eagles, he went 9-8 and went to the playoffs. Year 2, he went 14-3, Super Bowl appearance. Year 3, 11-6, went to the playoffs. Year 4, 14-3 in a Super Bowl appearance. His overall record, including the playoffs, is 53-23. So, also say, a lot of people want Sirianni gone. Still, the Eagles are in the Super Bowl, and there are people saying Nick Sirianni's a fraud. Eagles fans are kind of saying like Sirianni's a freaking joke. They don't like him, and I'm like, and they're saying, Nick Sirianni, he's a product of Howie and a really good front office who built a stellar team. So. Where do you guys draw your line in the sand? Is Sirianni a good coach? Is it more Howie and the front office here that have done this to the Eagles, or like what are your thoughts on this whole predicament? Because I found it really amusing as somebody who has no stake in any of this game.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say if you were to copy and paste, or rather maybe cut and paste Nick Sirianni and replace it with Dan Campbell, this is a very similar argument that everyone's calling me an idiot for making for like 3 years. So. First of all, I just want to state.
How did we make this about?
How do we go to Dan Campbell here?
Dan Campbell
because
isn't
it's
even
the same
on the show
argument.
notes.
Yeah, there's not a mention of Dan Campbell at all on here.
Hey, I support this. Scotty, go.
But
I don't know if I do.
to your point, I hate Nick Sirianni, and it might just be it's just his personality. I think I at the end of the day, everyone commenting on these games are fans or professionals, whatever. We're all human beings. And there's just something about him that is just so hateable. And I think Eagles fans have always felt that. but they were winning games. So it's like, well, he's not so bad. And then after the skid last year, where the whole organization just seemed to totally collapse, that's when Eagles fans felt comfortable saying, all right, we got to get this guy the fuck out of here. This is crazy. But now they're back in the Super Bowl. So I think you're going to talk to a lot of Eagles fans who have this war waging inside of their head where they're like, there's just something about him. I fucking hate it. But guess what? We're winning games, so I guess I'm fine with it. And that's kind of where everybody has to be, because if you're winning games at the end of the day, I brought up Dan Campbell. You're not going to fire Dan Campbell ever, no matter what. So Sirianni kind of has to be in the same conversation. No matter how much you hate him and hate his face, it's like, well, if he's producing, then what reason would you have to get rid of him?
I mean, we could have that conversation about Mike Tomlin that we've kind of already explored a little bit, and not to the degree in which the Eagles are with Sirianni or Campbell either. But so you're of the mentality that Sirianni's a product of a good front office. Is that kind of where you lean in this conversation, Scotty?
I don't really know. I think my mind is clouded by how much I hate his face. So
Okay.
I don't know that I could say.
I'd give him a kiss.
I think
he's kind of cute.
He's very abrasive, and he's brash with some of the things he says, and he's demonstrative on the sidelines, and the little nods he does and yelling, and he acts like a fan on the sidelines, which I think rubs a lot of people the wrong way. He's in it. I think that same mentality helps him with the locker room. And so as much as I don't think Nick Sirianni is an amazing head coach, to me, he's almost needed with this roster that you have. I think he's a good locker room guy. I think he keeps people together. He lets them be who they are. They have their personality. AJ Brown's reading a book on the sideline. Saquon Barkley smacking his helmet as he's running in for touchdowns. He's letting them be who they are, and there's something to be said for that. He's not trying to be overly controlling with them. So I think that's fine. I would say they could probably be more dominant, which is crazy to say, if they had a head coach in there that maybe was a little bit into the X's and O's. Sirianni very famously over the last couple of years has had a lot of responsibilities stripped from him because things were not going his way, or they were not going the Eagles' way. So yes, I agree that I think he's probably more of a product of what the front office is doing and how the roster is constructed, which, sometimes you're only as good as the players on your team. You could be the greatest coach in the world, but if you don't have any players, there's also something to be said there. But I think he kind of gives this team what it needs in certain moments, and kind of has that fiery passion. But I totally get why people don't like him. I largely am turned off by him just because of how he acts like a fan.
In a lot of ways, he's the perfect coach for Philadelphia. I mean, because when
He
fans who don't live in Philadelphia think of Philadelphia fans, that's the exact kind of personality.
100%.
Just someone who's kind of abrasive, and they're kind of unpredictable, don't really know what they're going to do next. And obviously that doesn't describe everybody, but when you picture that archetype, you kind of picture Nick Sirianni.
I think Nick Sirianni is close to that one fan that was saying screaming the C word at that one girl in the stands. You remember, he very famously, if you're following it on Twitter,
Yes.
the guy was recording him and he's just calling her a C word. I think Nick Sirianni, if he wasn't a head coach, I think he would be that guy. I think he would be getting fired from a consulting job because he was screaming obscenities at a woman. That would be that's the two levels to Sirianni.
I would take him as a head coach over Jonathan Gannon. 100%. I would take a homeless guy over Jonathan Gannon. When you meet your quarterback for the first time and you do fake sword sounds at him, that's a pretty clear indicator that you're not probably the guy for the job. So he's like, fume, hey, I'm John Gannon. Hi, Kyler Murray. It's like, what the fuck are we doing here? So I would take Sirianni over Gannon. But
Okay, let's flip this question on its head.
Okay.
Do you? And I think people have done this, and not that the Eagles would ever get any of these coaches, but what if Andy Reid went back to Philadelphia? Would they be even more dominant, or would they be less dominant?
Yes, they would. But going back to what you both had just kind of alluded to, is I do think Sirianni fits the archetype of what the Eagles are as an organization, and kind of he fits that mantra really well. But every coach is going to be different, right? Andy Reid is a very different head coach than Nick Sirianni, and at the end of the day, is that not kind of the job of a head coach? Each head coach does things differently. They run their show differently. And so Andy Reid, yeah, he's the walrus who loves cheeseburgers and is kind of stoic on the sidelines and very rarely gets angry and just kind of rolls with the punches, and he's great at coaching. But then you have somebody like Mike McDaniels, right, down at the Dolphins. The guy's a goober. The guy is the epitome of a goober, but he's still in the Dolphins. Obviously, had some troubles this year, but like we know he's a good offensive mind, and we know he's good at the X's and O's. And so, also say, is it necessarily a bad thing that maybe Sirianni got some of this stripped from him? Because at the end of the day, they're still producing, right? So it might not be how fans want it to be done. Maybe they want their head coach to be their play caller, but is that the end of the world that they're not, because they're still finding ways to obviously go deep in the playoffs and or go to the Super Bowl?
As long as you're making Super Bowls, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah,
exactly.
Do whatever you want.
That's more of a question for Howie as he evaluates the staff. Like,
sure,
could I be getting more out of this team? And, what more could you get out of? Now, I think conversations will be had if they go to the Super Bowl and Sirianni is outcoached by Andy Reid again. Then you have to ask that question. Is like, okay, our roster is good enough to get here, but our coaching staff is not good enough to seal the deal. That's the conversation that would be had in that moment. And then that conversation's restarted.
Yeah, realistically, I mean, with the success that they've had this year, Nick Sirianni's not going anywhere. Like, they could get blown out by 60 in the Super Bowl. It's not going to matter. Like, Nick Sirianni's still going to be there.
I don't know.
For Allen, it depends on what it looks like.
It depends on what it looks like. I think I really do. And if you look at the games that they played, or the playoff run for the Eagles right now, Packers, kind of banged up, didn't look good, turnovers. Rams, they could have easily lost that game. It was within the realm of them losing. So it wasn't like they blew out the Rams. They weren't, X's and O's wise better. I think actually, McVay putting his Rams team in a position to actually beat the Eagles in Philadelphia with the roster that he had, I mean, that's to go toe to toe. Those are two stellar rosters, but to do that. And then you go to this Commanders team, which is kind of, they have a lot of holes and a young quarterback. And I mean, blowing them out is I mean, it's hard to sneeze at that. But like I said, I think it'll be interesting what happens in this Super Bowl, because if Sirianni gets outcoached or does something stupid, don't put it past Philadelphia and its fans to like start a fire. They may be like grateful for being there, but they will 100% set him ablaze if he screws it up royally.
If he gets fired after this season, it's entirely due to his face. So they're just going to be like, I get the results, but we're not dealing with this anymore. I don't think he's getting fired, but I think he would. I don't think he would be on a sizzling seat to start the next season if he did something stupid in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Looking at the other side of this coin, the Commanders. I mean, obviously 23-55, it was not a great look. I think Commanders fans are just happy to be here, right? I think I didn't have the Commanders winning this game. I thought it could be really awesome if they did, and what a story that would be. But for the Commanders to even be here, like if you were to go listen to us at the beginning of the season, show of hands, how many people here had the Commanders going to the freaking NFC Championship, right? Like nobody did. So, and I think Commanders fans probably did not either. Like they were like, yeah, we just hope for maybe a winning record and some optimism that maybe our rookie quarterback could be our future, right? So they far exceeded their expectations this year. In large part, you talked about it just a little bit earlier, is Jayden Daniels, Alan. Like the kid is phenomenal, and Commanders fans have got to be just super excited for the future. And I, this has reinvigorated the entire franchise with Jayden Daniels there. So what were your takeaways from Jayden Daniels in this game and really all season long?
I mean, Commanders fans are definitely, obviously they're disappointed. It's been a long time since Commanders fans have been able to sniff the Super Bowl like this close. So, like from our perspective, we're like, yeah, it was a great season. You got a lot to be happy about. You got a great future. But from their perspective, it's like, fuck, like we were so, how many quarterbacks, come in and almost make a Super Bowl or do make a Super Bowl in the first couple of years and then never see it again. Like that does happen. So Commanders fans are definitely disappointed now, but I think when the offseason comes around, they're gonna be able to look at the big picture and be happy. And Jayden Daniels is just incredible. Like he's just playing awesome. There's just nothing but good things you can say about this team. One thing that I kind of took away from this, just like the realization watching the game, is when you go back to the preseason and we're ranking these NFC teams and talking about what the Super Bowl matchups are going to be, we didn't have either of these teams. going into the Super Bowl. Like, we were talking about the NFC North. We were talking about how those 4 teams are going to dominate the division. Like, even the Eagles, I've said it repeatedly, but they've been kind of the unsung heroes of the NFC throughout the whole season. Because up until just like a handful of weeks ago, we were still talking about the Lions. We're still talking about the Vikings. Even started talking about the Rams a little bit. And the Eagles were just like, that's fine. You can underappreciate us. We're just going to do our thing and make a Super Bowl. So, a lot of credit needs to go to both of these teams. If you're a Commanders fan, you're happy. And I'm happy for them.
Yeah.
I think it's very fun to see them doing well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's always good when you can know that you have something in your back pocket going into next season, even as a fan, but extremely important for the front office because it allows you to build now. Now you can prioritize certain things where you're not so worried about the quarterback or trying to beef things up because you have to make up for the deficiency that you might have at the most important position in football and all of sports, which is the quarterback. So I think if you're the Commanders front office, the one thing you really want to focus on going into the offseason is getting him more confidence. I don't think you can fix everything. They obviously have problems on defense, which were exposed in the NFC title game. They have a lot of holes, but I think if you're going to do anything, the 2 things that should be on top of your list are continue to protect Daniels. You got to protect the property. You don't want him to get beat up. And then give him another weapon. And I think if the Commanders can come out of this next offseason and do that and give him some more protection and give him another weapon, you can live with the rest. And then you can look to rebuild the defense and some other pieces. But I think for the continued development of your franchise quarterback, you want to protect him and give him another weapon, a la what the Bengals did with Joe Burrow, right? Like they were in this position when they drafted Jamar Chase, where they could have taken a lineman early and ended up taking a weapon that could help. And so, not saying that that's going to work for every team, but if I'm a Commanders fan, it's kind of fun because now you can go to the offseason like, oh, what are we going to do next year? But there's also there's some hesitancy there. I would say is because now that you have this hope, now you have an expectation. Part of what made this fun for the Commanders because you had zero expectation.
Yeah.
Now you've been to an NFC title game. Now you're like, all right, how do I get back there? And I think that's an interesting conversation for Commanders fans. Is that your bar now? Is the NFC title game your bar? Because I think some things kind of went right for you to get there. So what is the bar now? Is it getting back to the playoffs or what is it? Because it's interesting because nobody wanted to be there, but once you got a taste of it, like you said, Scotty, now you want it again.
Well, and like I said, you've sold hope not only to the fan base, but to other NFL players, right? Like, let's not forget free agency is a real thing. And, that's when players are going to look at teams saying, hey, I'm a free agent. Where should I go? Nobody was interested in the Commanders, right? They're interested in a paycheck, and so if the Commanders are willing to pay, then maybe they go there. But now you kind of, just like Saquon Barkley, right? We just had this conversation where Saquon had 2 higher offers and he decided to go with the Eagles. Why? Because it gave him the best chance to try and get to the dance, right? And so now they're here. And what the Commanders have done is they've said, hey, we have that property that you were mentioning. He is a great talent. And now come play for us. You've seen where we can go. And so not only have you bought that hope for the fan base and the organization, but you've also bought it for other potential players as landing spots for them to come and thrive and potentially showcase their abilities with the Commanders, who, once again, nobody had really going to anywhere this year. And all of a sudden, here they are in the NFC Championship. So you're right. It's not an easy battle, right? And their schedule next year is probably going to look a little bit more difficult than it did this year. So it's a difficult thing for any team to get even to the playoffs. I think that would be my bar if I was the Commanders. Is I want to see us get close to the playoffs again, and then we'll see what happens. But, man, what a complete 180 for this organization just due to drafting Jayden Daniels. And the kid, I'm excited for the Commanders. I'm excited for him. And I'm excited to see where they take this thing because Commanders haven't been good in a very long time. And now they've shown, we might be able to get it done over and over again. And I think with him as a quarterback, it's certainly there for them to do so. So, all right. Anything else on the Commanders-Eagles game, or you guys want to go over to your game?
Let's talk about the real game.
All right. So the Cardinals, week 7 against, I'm just kidding. It's AFC title game. Chiefs, Bills, 32-29 Chiefs.
Where do we begin here? There's so many superlatives. There's much anecdotal. There's a lot of legacy things happening. There's a lot of coaching weird blunders that McDermott did that maybe he would want to have back.
You start it, Alan. You said you unpack it. You guys unpack it from where you want to come because you guys are the Chiefs fans here.
We'll start at the top. I think a lot of legacy pieces that came out of this game for Mahomes and Josh Allen are front and center. Part of me, if you're a Bills fan, this is tough. This is back-to-back years. Last year you had the Chiefs in Orchard Park. You thought it was your time. This year, okay, we're Josh Allen's maybe the MVP. We got a great team. Our defense is pretty healthy. Let's go in there and see what we get done. And I think the thing that stood out to me is that every time the Chiefs and Bills match up, the Chiefs find a different way to beat them. It's not even the same way. It's just different ways. It's all right. We're a little bit stronger on the run game. All right. This game was read option, and Mahomes was running it, and they were throwing quick passes, things that the Bills probably didn't prepare for, which is go back to coaching. Like, you don't know what to, if you can mix it up, that keeps everybody off balance. I think for me, the biggest storyline coming out is the Chiefs now become the first NFL team off all the teams that have been back-to-back Super Bowl champions to actually get back to the Super Bowl. No previous back-to-back Super Bowl winner has actually made it back, has actually made it to the building. And that was my thing. Like, just get into the building. Whatever happens, but at least get to the building to give yourself a shot. And so this 7-year run already eclipses any of the 7-year runs that the Patriots had during their dynasty runs. Like, this is already one of the best. This is the best stretch the NFL has ever seen from a single team. And Mahomes passes Joe Montana, is now solo second in playoff wins by a QB all time. Now, Brady is like double that amount of wins, which is insane.
Give him time. Give Mahomes time.
Mahomes isn't even, he's not even 30 yet. He's not even 30. He's already playing in his 5th Super Bowl. I think that's just insane to me. But
yeah.
Flip side of that is Josh Allen once again could not get it done. His team could not do it.
It's tough. I thought the Bills are the better team. I thought that last year. This one stung because it was so close. And like I did have the Bills winning this game. I'm excited for the Chiefs. I told you guys I'm rooting for the Chiefs. This is the last year I will root for the Chiefs. I'm rooting for them in the Super Bowl. I do hope they win. And then I hope the entire team collapses on the field and can no longer walk. That's kind of where I'm at. So this is my last bout of rooting for the Chiefs, and then I will officially, I know you guys have called me a Chiefs hater, but I will officially come out as a Chiefs hater after this game. I do want them to win. I think that from a historical standpoint, like, this is amazing. This is so cool. Like, we may never see this again in our lifetime, right? Like, regardless if it was just the Chiefs or the Titans or whoever team was that was able 100%. To get there 3 times in a row, that's incredible. So, like, yeah, I want to see history written here in this game, and I want to see the Chiefs win. It was tough, man. I watched this game. I was really exhausted. I wanted to go to bed. I was kind of hoping it was a blowout so I could just kind of watch the recap in the morning, and I couldn't because it was such a close game. And, watching, I won't forget the play. Josh Allen rolls out right. He's about to get sacked, and I'm like, this game's over, right? It's at the very end of the game, and he throws what I thought to be a duck down the field in a Hail Mary effort. Turns out Dalton Kincaid was right there. All he had to do was catch it. And another tight end, not named Mark Andrews, drops the ball in the most important play of the game. I mean, up to that point, arguably. And so watching Josh Allen on the sidelines and seeing his face, it was just like you saw a man he knew his time was up and he was just defeated. And I'm like, man, my heart kind of hurts for him because I really do like Josh Allen, and I do think he's an incredible quarterback. And this was my Super Bowl game. I said that going into this game. I do think the Bills and the Chiefs are the 2 best teams in the NFL. It just sucks that the Bills are in the NFC, so their gate to go through is the Chiefs, and that's a feat they still have not accomplished. So it was tough to see for Bills and for Josh Allen specifically because I really do like him and I want him to get a ring in his lifetime. But yeah, as Chiefs fans, you got to be really excited about it.
Yeah. First of all, this Chiefs team is the best team in NFL history. Allen kind of alluded to it. The accomplishment that they've already achieved is better than any team in the history of this game, which is incredible. Mahomes still has a long way before he's better than Tom Brady, just given Tom Brady's success on a billion different teams. Like, obviously, he was with the Patriots for a long time, but how many times did that roster turn over? And he had to get new weapons and make new stars out of players. Like, Mahomes still has a while before he's in that conversation. But as far as team success goes,
do you even think it's a while though? Like, genuinely, like, because I don't. Like,
I think if
he's already there.
I think if they three-peat, I mean that's hard. Like, it's just the clips, like the the moment in time would I think Brady just has longevity over him. Like he just did it for so
Yeah.
long. Like that's hard to do and replicate, which isn't a knock on Brady because that's hard to take care of your body. But I think if they three-peat, even now, I think even after they won last year, I think Mahomes is in the conversation. And statistically, it's not even close. If you just look at production.
Yeah.
But
he's in the conversation for sure. I would make the argument, as much as I love Patrick Mahomes, that longevity is the key component in terms of having the greatest career of all time. So, like, if you don't have the longevity yet, I mean, we don't know what the future holds for Patrick Mahomes, and maybe this is the last Super Bowl he's ever in. Knock on wood that's not going to happen. But, like, if that were to happen, then obviously this would be a conversation. Certainly, this is a huge step forward if he can manage to win 3 in a row. But I still personally think, Tom Brady's success over the course of his career is unmatched, and that's just a difficult argument to make, I think, from a Chiefs perspective. My biggest takeaway from this game is outcoached. The Bills were outcoached. We saw several just kind of like mystifying decisions made by the Bills coaching staff throughout this game. Number one was they told Josh Allen to revert back to his old days in the entire first half. They're like, Josh Allen, you just run around and huck the ball as far as you can, 7 or 8 times in the first half, when everybody knows that that's not even close to what got them to this position, right? They've been dominant on the ground, running with Josh Allen, running with James Cook the whole season. They've been dominant doing that. And the first half of this game, they just like threw that in the dumpster for some reason. It was very strange. Then, you jump to how many times did they run this QB sneak, hybrid tush-push thing with Josh Allen when it was so obvious from the very first attempt that Spags had the Chiefs defense ready for that exact play. And, like, it just wasn't successful, and they kept doing it over and over and over and over again, and eventually stopping them on that 4th down at the end of the game, made all the difference in the world. So, like, just those sorts of things. And then, they just, like, abandoned James Cook again at the end of the game for some reason, even though he was averaging, like, 7 yards a carry or something ridiculous. Like, it was just, like, one thing after another. And then, of course, they had a key injury on defense early in the game, but this is a Bills defense that allowed the Chiefs to put up more than 30 points for the first time this entire season. So all 4 of those things are huge reasons why the Bills lost this game, and all 4 of those things go back to coaching. And that's just the difference in this game is the Chiefs have the championship pedigree, they have the championship DNA, and the Bills just don't have that yet on the coaching staff.
The one ironic piece to all of the coaching decisions that were made was that early in the game, Bills score a touchdown, and they kick the extra point. The Chiefs are offside. Reed's offside. McDermott, what does he do? Okay, we'll take the penalty, but now we're going to put it on like the 1.5, and we're going to do our tush push. Doesn't go their way. They don't get in. Sweet freaking irony at all the hand-wringing that everybody was doing on Twitter for the last week, claiming how rigged the NFL is, which I'm going to make a statement on that, for the refs. Oh, it's the refs. Oh, my God, the refs. It's so rigged. Sweet irony that the points were taken off the board for the Bills because of a penalty on the Chiefs, and they never got those points back, which is pretty much a deciding factor in this game because then they were chasing that the whole way and ended up losing by 3. So for all the bitching that everybody did, the Bills did it to themselves, and the Chiefs were called for a penalty. Side note, I'm going to just give a quick PSA to everybody out there. If you actually think that the NFL is rigged, you are a freaking moron, and you should go outside and be shot, because there's no way in hell that 31 other competitive billionaire owners are all agreeing that this little small market team in Kansas City is the one team that we want to have winning all the titles, and that is the best monetary thing for the league. It is freaking not. That is not the team that they would put up there to do it. It would be Dallas. It would be San Francisco. It would be the Jets. It would be somebody freaking else, not the Chiefs. So number one, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Oh,
number
wrong.
2, if you are so convicted that it is rigged for the Chiefs, liquidate all your assets and go bet on the Chiefs with conviction. And if you can't do that, then you quit bitching and you don't actually believe it. You don't actually believe it then. You don't.
Okay, Alan. Okay, let's calm down here for a second. Have you seen the pictures on Twitter of Andy Reid giving some sloppy top to the refs? Don't sit there and tell me that the NFL's not rigged when there's literally pictures out there of Patrick Mahomes kissing the refs on the lips. You don't kiss somebody if you don't love them and there's not some backdoor shady deals going on, okay? So get off your high horse. Go look around on Twitter at all these pictures that are legitimate pictures going around, and that's going to tell you all you need to know about how rigged the NFL is, okay?
Internet's undefeated. You're right.
Thank you. All right. I want to go back to Josh Allen here for a moment because, Scotty, you're right. Josh Allen was not the reason that the Bills lost this game. Josh Allen, he went 237 and 2 passing touchdowns, no turnover. And Josh Allen has become the first quarterback in NFL history to lose to the same quarterback 4 times in the playoffs. Okay? Bills, they committed 0 turnovers and they lost. Josh Allen, he has the most playoff wins, which is 7. Most playoff wins to never have a Super Bowl appearance. And I bring all this up. Will Josh Allen ever win a Super Bowl? Will he ever do it? I mean, that's it's got to be so soul crushing for Bills fans to watch this year in and year out. So I posed the question: will he ever win a Super Bowl, gentlemen?
This is where I don't want to get into hyperbole because it is so close. There's so many of these little decisions where it could have gone Josh Allen's way. Even the 13 seconds game, which wasn't to go to the Super Bowl, but like there's just so many little things. I think mentally, this Chiefs team is a hurdle of all hurdles. I think there's just a block there that causes everybody to panic, and it's not the only team that has this happen to. I think Josh Allen can get to a Super Bowl, but he needs a lot to go right for him on his road to get there. I think he can't be playing, like one of the teams has to get bounced early. The Chiefs have to do something, major injury. I would say barring any major injury and everybody being healthy, I don't know. Like, I don't know if he gets there. For as much as the media props up Josh Allen and he may win an MVP that's literally the only like trophy he would have in his whole entire case is one MVP. That's it. And that for as much as he's celebrated, that's wild.
Let me pose this question then. I'll ask this a little bit differently. You have to choose one of these 2 quarterbacks to win a Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. Who are you putting your chips in? Who, if you were to pick one of these 2 to win a Super Bowl, which one are you picking? Because I'm picking Josh Allen over Lamar Jackson.
10 times out of 10, Josh Allen.
Okay.
Same.
And you're nodding your head.
Josh Allen elevates in the playoffs every year. And it's like, yeah, it hasn't gone his way. Yeah, he's had to run into this brick wall of a Chiefs team. He elevates in the playoffs. He is a better quarterback when it matters most. And the exact opposite is true of Lamar Jackson. Even though Lamar Jackson's great, I think he could, very, very well win a Super Bowl also. But if I had to bet, it's Josh Allen 10 times out of 10 because he rises to the occasion, like unquestionably.
Okay, and I agree with that. I've said I said it. Lamar Jackson will never win a Super Bowl. I don't believe that. But Josh Allen, I do. I really do. And I think some of what you said, Allen, has to kind of play out. I think that there's going to have to be some major injuries and something is going to have to go right their way. But I think also the coaching. He needs better coaching to help get him to that point because it's been a huge detriment to his success throughout his entire career.
I think that's what it is. And if you look at whether it's the Bills or the Ravens, it feels like, and I heard this on TV in one of the recap shows, it's almost like the Bills and Ravens throughout the seasons are convincing themselves that they're good enough to do this. And they basically, for all intents and purposes, blow their load during the regular season on like, oh, I scored 5 touchdowns in a game and look at this play we're running. And then it gets to the playoffs where everybody knows what you're going to do and they can't do anything different because they've like reached the end of what they can do, and exhausted everything. And for as great as a game as Josh Allen had, the difference between these 2 quarterbacks, which is kind of a dumb moment, is what do they do at the end of the game with the ball in their hands? And I don't know if that's coaching or if that's quarterback. I think it's a little bit of both. But if you look at that final drive, 6 plays for 17 yards. They burned a minute and a half and turned the ball over on downs when they had a chance to go down and tie the game. Like, this is your money time. This is the MVP of the league. This is, you have the best offense. You have, he can move the ball. He can do things, but it's like Spags knew exactly what they were going to do. There was no deviation from what they've always done. And when it came down to it at the end of the game, there was nothing different about it. And Josh Allen couldn't get it done. And whether it was coaching or Josh Allen, I mean, ultimately what that comes down to is that's it. That's the final play. And how many times do we see quarterbacks that are celebrated go and make it happen at the end? And he just has not done that. So for all the accolades and all the stats and everything he puts up, the very end of the game, we still have yet to see him when it matters, put the team and get it done and, stamp the game with his take. Like there's like a signature moment. And I don't think he doesn't have that yet.
Okay, but you would rather have Josh Allen with the ball in his hand than Lamar Jackson?
Yes, because Lamar will turn it over.
Okay, I agree.
At least Josh Allen will possess the ball.
Yeah. There was a play that I wanted to talk about just because I found it to be kind of interesting and more of like a what if thing. So there was two 2 minutes and 30 seconds left until halftime in this game. And there was a questionable potential interception / catch with Worthy. Sean McDermott, he threw the challenge flag. And then the Chiefs were still allowed to run a play, and then they went and looked at the previous play, right? Because McDermott had already thrown the flag. The refs didn't catch it. They didn't, do anything. So the Chiefs ran another play, right? And then there was a holding call that prior to the challenge flag being thrown on the same play. So there's a lot going on to unpack here. But I pose a question. Do you like the call for McDermott to throw the challenge flag? And then I'm also sitting there wondering, like, okay, what if they did rule it an interception? Then what, like, is there any sort of, like, uproar that the Chiefs got to run an extra play? Or, what would that just be null and void? I found that to be a very, very confusing situation, and I just thought I'd bring it up here on the show for you guys to talk about.
Yeah, that was we were I think we were texting about it during that time of like, what is this? What are they doing? It was very confusing. That play basically never happened that they ran after that completion because they threw the challenge flag, so it was basically dead. So that play never happened. Even if they had ruled it an interception, there was still a defensive holding on the table. So really all that was up for grabs was like 15, 20 yards of field position at the end. What I think is ironic, though, is it's funny because when you hate one team and you don't hate the other team, what you let slide. And if the Chiefs, if the roles were reversed and the Chiefs were able to challenge it after the Bills seemingly ran a play.
Oh yeah.
The fever pitch of the refs rigging this, the incompetence that like the refs are in general is just astounding. Aside from that one, there was also the one where like I think it was the same drive going down to the 2 minutes or whatever, where the clock, I had never heard or seen of that, of like, oh, it's like the blended clock, and just because it hits zeros on the play clock, it's still blended, so we'll let it tick down to the 2 minute warning. I had never heard that one either. So it was like as much football as I feel like we've all watched in back-to-back games, I learned something about football, which blew my mind. But that one was just weird because it felt like it was just incompetence on the refs all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think challenging it was a fair thing to do because it was definitely a coin flip sort of situation. Everyone knows ties go to the offense, and I think pretty much that's what played out because the ball hit the ground, but it didn't move, so it was like it was possessed by somebody, and then who knows kind of what turns out. So I don't blame him for throwing the challenge flag. I think you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and it looked like it was a toss up, so you might as well try it. But again, people, the Chiefs haters, that want to talk about the refs, they point to that play, which is silly because there was the defensive holding. So it was going to be a first down for the Chiefs regardless. And then the other play that people point to is the one where Josh Allen was inches away from getting a first down on the little tush push thing. And that one, it's like, okay, that's just the problem with not having electronic yardage, being able to note actually bad. Where the first down is. And I don't, to me, I watched the replay like everybody else did, and I don't know if he got the first down. Like at that point in time, that's why you fall back onto the ruling on the field, because you have refs that are just like, well, I think this is about where he was at, and then you look at replay and you can't tell, and you're just like, okay, well, we're just going to go with the original ruling on the field. So I don't blame the refs for that one either. I think the two calls that ever have everybody up in arms over this game, like they do every Chiefs game, were both pretty much totally fair at the end of it. I think it came out just totally fine.
Well, you would say that as someone who has the refs in your on part of your payroll. We're talking about the refs. I got to ask you guys, because it's every time we talk about the Chiefs, I think somewhere in the conversation the refs get brought up. At least this entire season, that has been the case. And so I have to ask you guys, are we tired of the refs? Are we tired of having refs on the field? Is it time for the NFL to just bring in a full electronic, there's no deviation for human error, just let technology dictate the rules of the game? Are we at that point in this sport where then, you don't have that human error, and then we can't sit there and look at all the pictures of Patrick Mahomes kissing the zebras? Is that where you guys want to go? Or do you guys not want to go there because you do have the refs in payroll and you don't want the game to go in not in favor of the Chiefs because now you realize that there's a lot of things going in your way?
First of all, credit to you for a very fair question. No
Thank you.
bias at all.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate that
Yeah.
from you. Generally speaking, I think that the refs are a good thing, regardless of them missing calls, because we as fans do not realize how much cheating, incidental or otherwise, takes place in every football game on every play all the time. Like, could you imagine if you had some like AI algorithm that was able to look at live video and pick up holding? They would be holding on every play. Like, we would never finish a football game. It would be insane. So you almost like have to have the human element in order to play the game at all. But there are certain things like it's time to update. Like
the ball,
just the
ball
chain
on
gang
the
existing.
That's the
is
easiest.
It's crazy that like, and I understand there's like nostalgia with it. Like, you kind of like the chains a little bit, but
No.
it's like, okay, when you're in the playoffs and you're trying to see who's going to the Super Bowl and it comes down to 2 inches between a first down and not a first down, and we're relying on this doofus on the sideline to have the chain in the right
70-year-old
spot.
man who can barely walk.
Yeah, that just seems crazy.
I'm right there with you. The ball placement thing, I agree. Even for like touchdowns, like, did it break the plane? I don't know. Let me look through these 300-pound dude's asshole to figure out if he actually made it. It's like, I can't see anything. Well, no shit, you can't see anything. In tennis, they can, they have the technology. In soccer, they have the technology. There's no reason why we shouldn't have it in the game. I will say, though, the only thing that would happen is it would shift the narrative that if it made a call on the field and it went against your team and what you thought visually, they would say the NFL's rigging it. They're in the back office making sure that those aren't called touchdowns.
Well, they're already doing that right now.
It'll never end. It'll never end. Throughout history, it'll never end. I sat at an AFC title game. It was Tom Brady. It was Mahomes, Patriots, Chiefs, and I watched the dumbest roughing the passer call I've ever seen in my entire life, where Brady even barely got grazed and it extended a drive, which ended up leading to them winning or tying the game and sending it to overtime. And the Chiefs didn't go to the Super Bowl. I've seen it from all angles. I get it. If you want to go back, if you look at the two teams that made it to the Super Bowl, the Eagles also had a lot of calls go their way. Not that it mattered last game, but even the game before, there's just been some questionable things that the Eagles also got that went their way. I think that's just part of it. That, like, shocker, things kind of go your way and you take advantage of it, and those are the people that make it to the end. Like, that's just how it is. And I don't think it would be an issue if the Chiefs didn't convert on the opportunities they were given. But the Chiefs get the opportunity, then they convert, and then everybody does the butterfly effect to that penalty. But they totally negate and neglect to acknowledge the fact that the Chiefs executed then after that point. That's what pisses people off, because they know the Chiefs are good. They know they are a championship team, and they're tired that they actually get to double down and convert on those. That's ultimately what it comes down to.
They know that they have the refs on their side and that there's a payroll, and that's how they're getting paid. So,
I hate
last question about the Chiefs before we move on to the coaching carousel. I really want to talk about this. I know it's not necessarily sexy, but there's a lot of coaching stuff going on that I want to talk about. Is this Super Bowl that is coming? Super Bowl 59. It's in New Orleans. Eagles Chiefs. Is this Travis Kelce's last game?
Yes.
Because I was going to say this is the last game for Travis Kelce. Okay.
This is it.
Yeah,
Sad.
I think we're at that point.
Yeah,
It's
I
sad.
agree.
This is going to be a
It
sweet
is.
game, though. I'm excited for this one.
No, so am I.
It's got all the star power at every level.
Well, let's preview this game just a little bit then. I'm sure we'll get into it in more detail next week, but
Yeah.
let's talk about it.
Okay.
Slaps, you're the unbiased one. What
Okay.
do you see happening?
Who do I see winning?
Yeah.
The
What do you
Chiefs.
how do you see it going?
The Chiefs. This is if Spags can, and I don't want to go too far in the weeds here because I know we're going to talk about this in depth next week, but this is going to come down to, can Spags stop Saquon Barkley? And I think he's going to find a way to do that. And then you're going to force Jalen to throw the ball, and you're going to see how incompetent he is at throwing the ball and how incompetent he's been the entire year.
Jalen Hurts' best game of his career was in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs.
Yeah,
2 years ago.
and it was. And he played a damn near perfect game. It was like, you talk about perfection, that game, and Jalen Hurts playing in that game, he played an amazing game. But that was 2 years ago. This offense looks different now, right? And the fact that you have A.J. Brown on the sideline reading books, and you, like, yes, they haven't had to use their wide receivers, but also it would probably be good to at least know that you've got them out there and you still can get it done. And this offense really hasn't had to use them much this year, or hasn't used them much this year. You have Kellen Moore as an offensive coordinator this year, and this is his first year with the Eagles as OC. And so he's changed the paradigm of what this offense looks like from a structural standpoint. Yeah, I'm a little concerned because now Jalen's going to have to throw the ball, and he really hasn't been forced to do that at all this year. And the Eagles have found ways to succeed. So can he throw the ball in the biggest stage when it matters most, when he hasn't done it much this year? I do have concerns about that. And
I have faith in Spags as well, but we're coming off a game where we just watched a much lesser running back average 7 yards a carry.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of Saquon Barkley. I think
and you should be.
Chiefs fans are looking at this matchup and right after this Bills game and saying, holy shit, like this could, Saquon Barkley could have 200 yards rushing in the Super Bowl. Like he's that caliber of player, and our team seemed to really struggle. And we went into the Bills game knowing, okay, running the football is what they want to do, and we still let James Cook have all the success. If the Bills' own coaching staff didn't remove him from the game plan, like he would have had even more yards and been more successful. Like I'm very scared of Saquon Barkley. I do think, obviously, I want the Chiefs to win. I think the Chiefs are perfectly capable of winning and three-peating, but the Eagles, all season long, they've been underestimated, and I'm not going to underestimate them in this game. Like I'm legitimately concerned about this team.
You're going to estimate them appropriately.
I'm going to estimate the shit out of them.
They will be estimated, and they will be estimated equal. It's going to come down to the quad father, Saquon. What is he going to do? I think it's just like you guys said, if you can limit him, then you have a shot. I will say some of the game plan with James Cook is obviously because of Josh Allen. And I know we'll unpack this game, not getting ahead of myself, but I don't think Hurts is 100%. He's got that knee. He's been sacked a lot the last few games. And so I don't think he's as mobile as he wants to be, which is a large part of how they operate. And so I think there's going to be some cat and mouse down the stretch here with these teams as they get into the game of how healthy people are. What is it? What are they going to run? And who breaks tendency? That's what it's going to come down to. Can the Eagles break tendency of what they do and show something different? Do the Chiefs do it? And then, it's going to come down to coaching. And I still think in this game, the Chiefs have the best coach and the Chiefs have the best quarterback. So we'll see what plays out.
Yeah, we'll talk more about it. I don't want to get too far in the weeds here. So we'll bookmark this. We'll talk about it next week because that's going to be the last NFL game. Sad day. Okay. Let's do coaching carousel, gentlemen. Let's talk about the coaches because there's a lot that's happened here in the NFL that have different implications here. We'll start with the Raiders. An old Petey boy, Pete Carroll, signs a 3-year deal with the Raiders. You guys like this signing? And I bring this up. Pete Carroll, and I know I'm going to get some flack for this, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. Pete Carroll is 73 years old, and he signed a 3-year deal with the Raiders, right? Who, by the time his contract expires, he's going to be 76. Does Pete Carroll come in here and change the entire Raiders offense or the entire Raiders organization and give them a shot within his 3 years of living to be able to get it done? Do we like this signing? Because I don't.
I think it's a nothing signing.
Yeah.
It's just a face. They needed a face. They needed something. I think it gives them the ability to sell tickets and the ability to sell some things for themselves. But I think much like Russell Wilson, I think Pete Carroll stood up. I think Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson's legacy is largely due to one of the more dominant defenses we've ever seen of all time. That's it.
100%.
Legion of Boom, baby.
And it feels like a very Raiders move. I hate the Raiders. I maybe hate the Raiders more than any team in football, so account for my bias. But I see a team that is so far away from being successful, hiring a head coach that is so close to being dead. And it just doesn't seem like those two things coalesce. Like, if you're going to hire a 73-year-old coach, you better be pretty damn close to winning. And they are not close to winning. It just seems like I don't understand the thought process. It does make the AFC West seem pretty formidable because now, Jim Harbaugh is the only coach without a Super Bowl in the AFC West, which is crazy. But as far as the actual signing goes, it seems schizophrenic. It seems like it just doesn't align.
No, it doesn't. And I got a lot of flack, and it's like, you don't need your coach to go out there and play football. He's not running a marathon. He's coaching. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. But, why are you going to go bring an old man who is on the I like Pete Carroll. I really do like Pete Carroll as a human being. But a guy who's on his latter part of his life to come in there and try and to change up and curveball the entire organization and put them in a place to succeed doesn't seem like the right move to me, because that is a foundational stepping stone for a team, is finding a head coach, and you have a guy who's probably not going to be around for a whole hell of a long time to try and get this thing right, steer the ship in the right direction. It doesn't make sense to me. So I found this to be incredibly weird as a signing. There are rumors that old Petey Boy and Russell Wilson have made amends from their ending in Seattle. Is there an actual probable chance Russell Wilson is the starting quarterback for the Raiders next year? He's on a 1-year deal with the Steelers. He's going to be a free agent. Do we see Russell Wilson in silver and black this upcoming year?
I hope so.
That would be the dumbest.
That'd be easy.
It would be
easy.
funny. It would be
Easy,
very
hilarious.
Easy clap.
Easy clap.
Sorry, I if you're watching, I had to drop for a second. I had to pee so bad. I held that thing forever as long as I could. That's honestly world record. I think that was world record length of someone holding a pee. It felt like.
I wish I was holding something while you were peeing.
I was listening. Odd. I was listening to you guys while I peed. But I think again, if Russ wants to go there, great. I largely think this is a nothing thing. I do think it's funny that just all these coaches in the AFC West now have coached in a Super Bowl, which is hilarious. And but I think the Raiders have a lot of things they need to fix. I don't think Pete Carroll gets them any closer. If Russ wants to go there, great, whatever. He can go do that. I think they're both past their primes in whatever they were doing. So I think for the Raiders, it's fine. It gives you some stability in the moment and somebody that knows what they're doing. I think an adult in the room is helpful. That can kind of give them that direction. But largely, I think
Are you trying to say Antonio Pierce was not an adult in the room?
No. Which I think is...
It does feel like Antonio Pierce was kind of like the substitute teacher that let all the kids watch movies every day. Like, he came in and they went from like Josh McDaniel to the cool guy, and they're like, oh, finally we got someone cool. And then you finish the year and you're like, wait, I didn't learn anything. Wait, we didn't accomplish
That's a really
anything.
great analogy, Scott.
That's perfect.
And so it is good to bring in an adult. I agree with that. It just seems like you should bring in an adult who's got a little bit longer left to breathe.
Instead of the playbook, he was wheeling the TV into the front of the room. You're like, oh, yeah.
Another movie day, guys. Let's go.
It's fair. I like that.
We're talking about adults in the room. In regards to the Raiders specifically, it's also rumored per Diana Rossini that Tom Brady is essentially running the show for the Raiders. So she had said, let's just start with making it really clear that Tom Brady is running everything in Vegas. It's all Tom Brady. I think there's some rumors, some chatter. I'm telling you, it's all Tom Brady there. I mean, even his own TB12 programs are being installed, so to speak. She said that on the Ryan Russillo podcast. And so... Alan, you're shaking your head there. Why are you shaking your head?
Gross. Just because it worked for Tom Brady does not mean it's going to work for an entire NFL team. What is the Tom Brady, the TB12 program? He barely ate. He ate lettuce,
like leafy greens.
So what are your linemen are going to lose like 40 pounds over the summer now because they're on this TB12 program? It doesn't make any sense to me. I know they got rid of the GM. Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I believe they did.
If he's going to continue to do this, then take him off the air. He doesn't need to be calling NFL games. That's my only thing. Like, if he's going to be this intertwined with a team, he shouldn't be calling. Because it's obvious. Because it's bias.
Why do you think that?
Because it's bias. Like, he can't objectively call a game and say what's happening and give his 2 cents or feedback. Like, what happens if he's calling an opponent that the Raiders are playing? I think there's too much conflict of interest there, and I know like a lot of the bylaws within the NFL would back that up. But I think if he's this intertwined, he's running that team, then get him off TV and let him go do that. And if I'm a Raiders fan, I would largely want the same. If you're really going to be running my team, then can you please focus on my team and fix this rather than gallivanting around and doing the roast of Tom Brady and calling NFL games? Like, come fix this shit.
And crypto commercials.
I want to know if the TB12 program involves plastic surgery. We're about to see the sexiest Raiders team of all time.
Okay, get Jimmy G back in the building.
You imagine how good Aiden O'Connell would look with a little bit of work?
Get a little chin work done in
Aiden
there.
O'Connell is pretty chubby. He could use some TB12
He could use
program.
the TB12.
Yeah. He looked like Tom Brady before, early in his
True.
career when he was just a little
Okay,
chunky.
maybe
Little
I'm
thick
back
with
in.
2 C's.
If you're Aiden O'Connell, if by the end of this you have a jawline, wouldn't that be worth it?
For Aiden O'Connell, yes.
Yeah, like Aiden O'Connell's like, dude, I'm pretty chiseled. I look pretty good right now. Like I can't throw the ball, but I look pretty good.
I look
I feel
good.
like
And
that's
I'm in
worth it.
Vegas, which is a great place to be if you're going to look good.
Okay, never mind. I totally changed my. I think this is amazing.
You're back out on.
I'm back.
All right.
Business.
Ben Johnson. He did sign with the Bears. We kind of talked about that a little bit last week. Love that hire. Think it's the right move. He brought the Saints' former head coach, Dennis Allen, in as his defensive coordinator. Guys, I don't hate that move. I don't hate that move at all. In the Bears, I've been every start for the last 2 years, every start of the season for the Bears, I'm like, Bears are going to be something this year. Bears are going to do it this year. Bears are going to be an interesting, good team this year. And they haven't been. And I think next year I'm going to say the same thing. I think the Bears are going to be pretty damn good next year, and they probably won't be, but maybe they will be, and I'm kind of buying back in on it. So talk me off a ledge here, because I think the Bears are going to be good next year.
I think Dennis Allen, we were just talking about adults in the room. I think it's smart for Ben Johnson to bring somebody in like Dennis Allen. Excuse me, Ben Johnson, obviously, this is his first go-around. There's a lot. When you're the head guy and you have to worry about everything, that's totally different than I got to worry about doing one thing. And I think, obviously, he wants to focus in on the offense. So I think it's smart to give somebody that's seasoned the ability to focus on the defense. I think that's a totally smart move. That way he can kind of go hands off a little bit on it and focus on what his bread and butter is, and then develop as a head coach and figure out like what he wants to do and things he wants to implement. So I think all around it's smart. I think this is smart for the Bears. I was happy the Bears got it. I think Ben Johnson going to the Raiders would have felt like kind of a waste of a head coach in the moment in development, just because of everything that's going on in Vegas. So I think this makes a ton of sense. If I'm Caleb Williams, if I'm that offense, I'm like, cool, at least we'll not be running these like screen plays every 2 seconds or scrambling for my life. Like there'll be some purpose to what we're doing. And so I think all around positive for the Bears. And, I know MK is probably just totally stoked for everything.
Yeah. All this shit people talk about Dennis Allen involves him being a head coach. I think he's got as much potential as anyone at a coordinator position on a competent, well, I was going to say in a competent organization. That remains to be seen in Chicago. But I don't hate the hire at all, and I also am very optimistic about the Bears. I think that Jayden Daniels was an outstanding rookie. Caleb Williams had more of the above average sort of typical rookie season where you see the potential there. He made some dumb mistakes. He got chased around a lot, like you could tell he was uncomfortable, but you expect him to take a big step forward next year, and I think it would be unreasonable to think he's not going to do that.
Caleb Williams passed for 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions.
Yeah.
That's very similar to what Mahomes did, even with less interceptions during the regular season. So it's not like they're far off. And that was with incompetence. And now we're saying they're getting competence. I might be talking myself into be right with slaps at the beginning of the season now with the Bears.
Let's go.
Damn it.
We getting Bears jerseys
we're all
next year?
We're all riding the Bears.
That
would be hilarious.
I'm rooting for him. I really am. I'm hoping the best for him. This next head coach, this is fun. This is the Jaguars.
Oh my!
I don't know if you guys have seen the entire.
This is incredible.
It is amazing. So, Jaguars announced that Liam Cohn, he's the former offensive coordinator for the Bucs. He's their new head coach. And I'm gonna give you the timeline here of how this all played out, because this is one for the books. So the Jaguars fired Doug Peterson, and they shockingly keep Trent Balk as their GM. Okay. The Jaguars, they wanted Ben Johnson, but he didn't want to go to Jacksonville because Balk was still the GM. And Ben Johnson said, I don't want to go there if this guy's going to be the GM. The Jaguars then pivot to Liam Cohn, but the same rule applies. He didn't want Balk in the picture as the GM. So he's like, hey, I don't want this guy as a GM. So then the Buccaneers, where Cohn is the offensive coordinator for, the Bucs offer to make Cohn the highest paid offensive coordinator, but he cannot take another interview with another team, namely the Jaguars. And this was the only team he'd interviewed up until this point. Jaguars then interview Robert Saleh. He starts to seem like the favorite with Liam Cohn out of the running. The Jaguars then realize their mistake and they fire Trent Balk, the GM. They're like, hey, we're out. This guy's finally out. And they pivot back to Liam Cohn and offer him essentially Ben Johnson type of money. Cohn gets on a plane, goes to Jacksonville for a second interview, violating the Buccaneers' conditions. And it was the Buccaneers head coach, Todd Bowles. He calls Liam Cohn at 5 p.m., and he's like, hey, man, where are you? And Cohn goes, oh, I'm sorry. I'm at the doctor's office with a sick child, but briefly mentions that he wanted to circle back with the Jaguars. Meanwhile, he is with the Jaguars. Okay. Inevitably, as we know, he was then hired as the head coach for the Jaguars. This just sounds like one of those cheating girlfriend situations where, like, you're dating this girl, she keeps kind of blowing you off, and then come to find out she's with another guy out at a restaurant somewhere. If I was a Jaguars, I would have kicked Cohn to the curb just to give him a lesson on what it feels like to be the other guy. I could not believe this situation had played out the way it did. Absolutely hysterical.
This is amazing because this is one of those things. If you don't know what happened, you did a beautiful timeline summary, Slaps. But if you didn't know what was happening, you'd be largely out on this whole like underground thing. But now there's this little rival. There's even more of a rivalry now. You got the Bucks and the Jags. Now you have this lovers scorn thing. This is very Jaguars to hose themselves and take too long to realize what they should have done in the first place, which is get rid of Trent Balk and move on from him as a GM. But what's equally hilarious is that they drove the asking price on themselves by not doing this and made it more expensive for them to get a guy they could have had cheaper previously if they just would have done it. And for Liam Cohn, I think it's comforting to know that regardless the job you hold in the world, you can always fall back to I'm at the doctor's or I have a doctor's appointment or my kid's sick. That's what everybody else does in the free world. I gotta go to the doctor. My kid's sick. So even if you're an NFL going to be a head coach, you still have the same Rolodex of excuses of why you can't maybe attend a call or get on the phone. So that's actually extremely comforting. But this is hilarious. Liam Cohn, the one thing that wasn't on here is that he never actually signed. It was like they signed.
He never signed the paperwork.
There's
with
like preliminary paperwork that says like, hey, this is all good until I actually sign the paperwork. And he never actually signed. So this is, I mean,
he didn't break any contracts per se. And
No.
the other thing that I didn't really highlight on here is Shad Khan. He's the owner of the Jaguars. He was on a call, and I don't know who he was on a call with, but he essentially said on the call he would be open to firing Trent Balk. Trent Balk was on the call. He didn't know that Trent Balk was on the call. It was like basically in front of this guy said, yeah, I'd be willing to cut him. And Balk's on the phone call. Here, he's on the Zoom call or whatever this call was. It was absolutely hilarious. Like, this is the most Jaguars thing to come out of the Jaguars camp.
What would be hilarious is if Shad Khan said this on the call, and, you know, we've been on Zoom meetings or Teams meetings, and you can, like, raise your hand. Wouldn't that have been hilarious is as soon as he said that, Trent raised his hand. It was like, I have a question. Trent, you have a question? Are you meaning me, like, now, or?
This is just, it's more credibility to Ben Johnson. He walked into this door and said, I'm considering these guys, and then looked around and saw it was a fucking whirlwind of just morons ramming their heads into the wall. And he said, oh, never mind. I'm going somewhere else.
I mean, this is the same organization that hired Urban Meyer for a year and was a disaster. Yeah. Like, this isn't the first time that we've seen this happen. And this underscores when you see teams that are doing it well. And, you know, I'm going to throw a little olive branch to Bills fans. It could be worse.
You could be the Jaguars.
It could be way worse.
Yeah. At least you're not the laughing stock of the game.
Yeah. No, it's terrible. Next head coach up here is Aaron Glenn was announced as the Jets head coach. So officially, the Lions coaching staff is starting to look pretty bleak because Ben Johnson also took a couple coaches with him over to the Bears. So this is, I don't really know exactly how I feel about this. Aaron Glenn stated that he would be interested in potentially bringing Aaron Rodgers back, and Aaron Rodgers had also stated that he'd be interested in coming back. I wasn't excited about Aaron Glenn going to the Jets, but I do think Aaron Glenn is going to be a good head coach. I find it to be pretty interesting that I'm of the mantra, I never thought Robert Saleh was the problem with the Jets. I think, you know, Scotty, you and I had a conversation about this, and I don't know how you feel, Alan, but to go get another defensive guy is really, really interesting given the fact that your offense was pretty dilapidated this year. And I'm like, man, I like Aaron Glenn. I think he is going to be good, but I don't really understand the Jets signing with this, and given the entirety of their season and what happened with Salah and everything.
Yeah, I think you never want to double down on mistakes. I think this is actually good. Aaron Glenn was drafted by the Jets, so he's got some familiarity. I think it's near and dear to his heart. I think for me, if I'm a fan, the one thing I would point to is how dead this Lions defense was. Literally, like, everybody was on IR. They lost some of their best players out for the season, and they still held it together, and it only burned them at the very end, which seems like now maybe a really, really good quarterback that burned them, which you never want to, sneeze at. But, like, I think this is good for them. I agree. This was not Robert's problem. This was all Aaron Rodgers. I don't know why people put so much trust in Aaron Rodgers and what he has to say, and largely, like, players in general, like, they're not going to have a holistic view of everything that needs to get done with the team. It's going to be like, what's best for me. And so, unfortunate how that ended. It sounds like Robert's going to be back as the DC for the 49ers, which
I like that, by the way.
Hey, just going right back. And I think that's smart. It's familiarity and comfort there for all parties. And then for this one, for Aaron Glenn, I think that defense is what carried them years prior. And they still have a lot of good defensive players on this Jets team. So I think it makes sense. The offense is broken. I don't know if you're going to fix that, but at least shore up the one thing that you've actually have confidence in, and I think it's the defense, and I think Aaron Glenn can do that.
Yeah, the Jets are an enigma. I've said this before. It doesn't make sense to me that they were as bad as they were. Because even, obviously Aaron Rodgers is old. He doesn't look as good as he did in the past. But this is a roster that was so stocked with talent. And it's not like they just underperformed. It's like they were pathetic. I'm a little concerned about hiring a first-time head coach in a situation like this. Like, it seems like this is like a Mike Vrabel exactly kind of situation where you want a coach who's been there before, who knows how to coalesce his guys, who knows how to get them over the hump when things go wrong. Maybe Aaron Glenn is great at that. We just don't know. And then also it goes back to the same things that we talked about when we were speculating about who would be the Bears head coach. I don't think they want a defensive guy. Best case scenario when you get a defensive head coach is you find success, and a lot of times defensive head coaches will have a good defense, but they really find success when they also get a successful coordinator in there to run the offense, and the offense looks good. But when the offense looks good and you're an offensive coordinator, you get picked off by another team, and then you go automatically back into the unknown. And defense, you can have a little bit more continuity. Offense, like, it's so complicated, and especially because they're going to have turnover with the quarterback at some point, probably soon. Like, it just seems like you'd rather have an offensive guy who can be in control for years to come, as opposed to taking the chance to finding success finally, and then bam, your coordinator's gone, and now you got to figure it out on offense.
And that's where my mentality largely lies, and that's why I like Aaron Glenn. I really do, and I think he will find success there. But once again, kind of what I was alluding to at the beginning of this conversation is like the Jets' offense it's got talent. It just also has Aaron Rodgers, and that's where I'm like, what are you going to do here? And so do you think Aaron Rodgers is going to be the head coach and the GM and the quarterback for the Jets next year?
No.
Or maybe one of those roles?
No.
They don't bring him back?
No.
You go to the Vikings and just finish out his Brett Favre trifecta?
No, and I think Aaron Glenn wouldn't want that either. I think he's seen how this story ends, having Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback right now. It's not like prime Aaron Rodgers is going to walk through the door. You don't want your livelihood on the line. You
think they bring him in as a backup quarterback, and they draft a quarterback?
I don't think he would bring himself in as a backup quarterback. I think he'd retire.
You don't think so?
He's going to retire before he ever sits.
I am more optimistic that he will be playing next year.
You think?
I think his ego's too big, and he wants to play. I don't think he wants to end his career on this last season. And I think, ultimately, if it were me and you in that situation, we're 42 years old and we had a terrible season, we're like, okay, it's probably time to hang it up. Aaron Rodgers has a bigger ego than us. I don't know if you guys, assumed that.
I don't know. But you got a pretty
definitely
big ego,
does. Yeah, I don't think Aaron Rodgers size though. So I do think he still has faith in himself, and he looks around and he sees the talent on the roster, and he's like, if we can just put it together, like, we can have some success. I think Aaron Rodgers really believes that. And I could see it running back for one more year, especially when you consider this quarterback class coming up is just not all that exciting. Like, it might make sense to say, okay, let's just give it one more shot. If it doesn't work, this is officially the last time. We all are on the same page on that. And then we have an opportunity to look at quarterbacks 2 years from now, as opposed to this quarterback class, which is like, I don't really have faith in any of these guys.
You still have to do bad. You still have to do bad. And that's the other part of it is you have to do bad in order to get a quarterback, right? And the Jets are already there right now. They already have a high pick. So I don't know. And Garrett Wilson wants out. He's kind of come out and said, like, I'm done here. Like, get me off this team. And so he's frustrated with Rodgers. You have Devontae Adams. We don't know what's going to happen with him. I don't know. It is a very interesting thing that's going to play out. I lean towards Rodgers probably not being back with the Jets because I think if I was Aaron Glenn and I look at the situation, I mean, we as fans watched it all unfold this last season. We know what happened. Like, Robert Saleh was gone because of Aaron Rodgers. Like that is, I believe that to be true. Aaron Rodgers was kind of running the show behind the scenes and getting his guys. The Devontae Adams signing was purely Aaron Rodgers. Like, there were so many things that Aaron Rodgers had influence in. If I was the new head coach for an organization, I wouldn't want somebody directly, when you don't like what I have to say and you don't like the decisions I make, so you go above me, that makes things complicated. And it makes it really, really frustrating, especially for a guy who's trying to create stability and a culture in a new environment for this franchise. I wouldn't want Aaron Rodgers there.
I just don't think Aaron Rodgers has the same power he did a year ago or 2 years ago when
I would hope
obviously the injury. But like, this organization isn't going to look at Aaron Rodgers like, okay, you're the king of the world and we're going to do whatever we can to placate you. Like they did before when there was still hope, but now they see Aaron Rodgers and they see his play on the field and they recognize, okay, we're at the end of the tunnel here, and it's almost like you have one last chance to prove it.
You see that. That doesn't mean the people in the Jets organization see that. You see that. We see that. And I agree with you. But it doesn't mean that the people that are running the show for the Jets think the same way. I'm throwing that out there because I agree with you completely. My concern is that there are those within the Jets organization that don't feel that way. And that would be my concern.
Yeah.
Time will tell. Time will tell. All right, last thing here. Cowboys hire Brian Schottenheimer as their head coach. I know, Alan, you've been a big fan of Schotty for a long time now. You were not surprised by this signing whatsoever. Largely none of us were, because the Cowboys, they knew who their head coach was this whole time. They were ready to be done with Mike McCarthy. And what better thing to do than go hire their offensive coordinator? Almost every single NFL team was looking at this guy. So for them to bring him in and say, hey, we got our guy, kudos to the Cowboys. And that was all completely satirical. Nobody had Schottenheimer as even a candidate for this role, except perhaps Jerry
I don't
Jones.
think Schottenheimer had himself as a candidate for this
I
role.
don't think he did either.
I think he got a call and he was like, wait, what? Me?
You want me to do what?
You want... Really? All right, well, I guess. Honey, I got a promotion. Like, I don't know exactly how that went. This is, again, the Cowboys doing Cowboys things. I don't understand this at all.
You want to hear a quote from Jerry Jones?
There's no way this ends well.
You want to hear a quote from Jerry Jones? So, yeah, this is completely insane. So this is from Jerry Jones. I know that Schotty is no stranger to these guys. He's talking about the players on the team. I know he's no stranger to this building. I get my proverb. What?
I hope he's not a stranger to the team.
Yeah, they should know who he is.
I get my proverbial ass kicked over needing people in my comfort zone. Without this thing being me in any way, if you don't think I can't operate out of my comfort zone, you're so wrong, it's unbelievable. This is as big of a risk as you can take. As big a risk as you can take. No head coaching experience. No shit, Jerry Jones. No shit.
So we're supposed to marvel at the fact that he's rolling the dice so hard. Like, he's taking
this is him going all in,
giant
Alan.
Gamble.
He's so
Jerry
old
Jones,
he forgot his years.
He got,
and he's going all in this year.
He is playing Texas Hold'em, and he got 7-2 offsuit, and he's going all in and be like, look at the balls on me. Look at me.
Check this out. This is totally reasonable. I mean, I don't know. Maybe this guy will be a great head coach, but it seems like this is just, to state the obvious, a continuous problem with Jerry Jones and just refusing to act in a timely manner. He's like, we're just going to hold on to everybody for way too long and then screw ourselves when we figure out, okay, we can't do that anymore. Like, why didn't you fire Mike McCarthy halfway through the season when your team was absolutely atrocious and you could have been first in line. You don't think Ben Johnson would have been seriously considering
100%.
the Cowboys? Like, so many of these coaches, just because it's the Dallas Cowboys, would seriously consider the Cowboys. So why are you delaying everything so long that now you're like, well, all the coaches are gone, so Shoddy, I know you didn't apply for this, but here you go.
Shit.
Damn
That's like
it,
shopping
Bobby.
for Valentine's Day on Valentine's Day, and there's nothing left at the store, and you're like,
Gotta buy
all right, melted box of chocolates, you're coming home with me. You are
carton of
the
eggs.
gifts.
Yeah,
You are
carton
the
of eggs.
I got you a deconstructed cake.
Yeah. Well, eggs are expensive. That's actually kind of a flex.
Hey.
If you bought some
That's
eggs for a woman, she'd probably be like, damn, okay. Okay,
Damn.
Warren Buffett. I didn't know you had that.
Stacks. God damn.
I want to keep reading this quote because it's hilarious. Jones said, "I have a good background in the makeup of what a coach is. To think that you can make a decision in an interview, and if you didn't and had never communicated or had a visit, I wouldn't dare have an interview unless I talked to many, many people that knew that person and had those kind of life experiences, knew their story." And then he goes on to say, "We know what osmosis is." That's great. "And we know what Shoddy grew up around. Frankly, from the standpoint of Shoddy, those crosshairs crossed. Shoddy might never have been in our mirror, our view, had he not joined us with Mike as a consultant 3 years ago."
Hold on. I can't get I'm not reading what you're reading. I'm just listening to you. And when you say shoddy, I'm picturing like SHAWTY, like he's shot. Hey, shoddy. Like that's what I'm picturing. Jerry Jones. You think shoddy isn't going to be the guy? Like,
And then he goes on to say, "I've sat in a handful of meetings with Shoddy. I've listened, and I've watched him. I've watched him have deference to his head coach. I've watched him have deference to experienced guys like defensive coordinator." He was talking about Mike Zimmerman. "I've watched him bite his lip sometimes when he didn't necessarily agree with that direction. But he bit his lip as his daddy would have told him to bite your lip."
Nice. I would be like, "Hi, Alan here at the Dallas Morning News. What the fuck are you talking about?"
yeah.
Can you please
Excuse me,
clarify?
Mr. Jones?
Are you even talking? Are these words? What is
Have you begun looking for a home? Are you going to go live in an assisted
this
facility?
Makes no sense. This is dumb.
But as Jones sees it, Dallas had a gem already in its building. That gem just needed to be polished and presented to the world, which the Cowboys believe they're doing in hiring Schottenheimer.
Lipstick on a pig is what they're doing.
It's like Joe Biden stepped down from being president and immediately took over the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, we're gonna hand the microphone to our brand new press secretary. We just hired him right before Shoddy.
This is indicative of like. Let's get some.
This is the
young
Cowboys.
blood in here.
This is the Cowboys, gentlemen. This is what's going on with the Cowboys. I love it.
The Cowboys are one nice state, like one shitty stadium away from just being the Jaguars at this point. They're lucky.
They are. I mean, they are. Like,
Bro, they already have the sun.
recognition.
The sun has already ruined their stadium.
Yeah,
That's
they have
true.
The sun unraveled the Cowboys. The one thing we know that's going to be there all the time did them in. So this just says everything.
It's the one thing in life that's predictable.
Hey, congratulations to Shoddy, baby. Congratulations.
Hey, Shoddy. I always knew you could do it.
Jerry Jones. Did you guys see the picture on X the Leatherbrains account tweeted of Jerry Jones?
White Yoda.
Yeah, White Yoda. And it is creepy.
Uncanny.
It is pretty spot
And he
on.
honestly speaks like Yoda because I don't understand what the fuck Yoda's saying either half the time. So this actually all tracks.
Yeah, the difference is I think, at least in the movie, Yoda knows what he's talking about most of the time.
I'm pretty sure Jerry Jones knows what he's talking about. I think he thinks he knows what he's talking about, but it does not translate to words that we all understand. Like he probably went to bed. He's like, "Man, that was art. That's a Sistine Chapel of words that just spewed out of my mouth." And then he watches the footage. He's like, "That's not what I said.
Wait
not at all what I said."
Okay. Gentlemen, that's all the time we have. I appreciate all of you brainiacs out there that have tuned in to this entire episode and or any other episodes that we have had. Hit the subscribe button. Truly does mean the world to us. We are a growing podcast, and we love interacting with all you brainiacs. So go follow us over on all social media platforms. And that's it. That's all the time we have, gentlemen. I love you guys. It was a pleasure doing this show. We will do it again for the last game of the year coming up.
Wait,
The
are you
Super
singing the national anthem next week?
That's next week. He's singing.
Bowl. That is, yeah, I will be singing next week. So I will be singing the national anthem.
Nice.
I have an outfit
So-
coming your way.
Wonderful. I can't wait.
It's just nipple tassels.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. I'm just butt ass naked with
This is now an
tassels on my nips.
OnlyFans account.
Yeah, I'm in for it.
Get that viewership up.
All right, let's get out of here. We
R.
Out.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you tune into our new releases every week on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out leatherbrains.com for all of your fantasy football needs. And remember, Brainiacs, a championship should be more than a fantasy.